An oiled-up interview with a childhood crush, stowing away in a stranger's trunk, and wrestling a judo champion at a fancy party. Over the years, the shameless, impractical jokers have come up with some truly unforgettable gags. For Murr's punishment for losing in poor taste buds, he got what initially seems like a pretty enjoyable task: being a culinary expert and critic, tasting and rating food in front of a class. However, the guys soon let him in on the twist. His mouth is going to be injected with as much Novocaine as is clinically allowed just before going on stage, meaning he won't be able to taste anything or speak properly. As soon as the dentist injects the Novocaine, its effect is noticeable on Murr.
I know most people get spaghetti and meatballs in a bolognese sauce.
Most people get spaghetti and meatballs in bolognese sauce.
He struggles to pronounce most words, including those with the letters B, P, S, and F. Taking advantage of this, the guys make him repeat alliterated sentences using those letters constantly.
Braised beef
is brilliant.
Braised beef is...
Soon, Murr has to start eating and drinking the food, which becomes quite the ordeal since he can't feel anything that his mouth is doing. The combination of Murr's hilarious struggles with completing sentences, along with the great audience reaction, make In Poor Taste Buds one of Murr's top pranks of all time. The guys in Impractical Jokers kick off Season 2 with a bang, with the episode Elephant in the Room. The first challenge is the Holy Molar Challenge, which sees the guys pretending to be dentists and interacting with patients, of course having to do whatever they are told. For example, Q informs his patients he has an embarrassing story about sexually transmitted infections and Atlantic City before using the suction wand on his face.
Tell him that's not your worst story about crabs.
God, crab cakes. That's not my worst story involving crabs in Atlantic City, if you know what I mean.
Sal's up next, and he has to practically invert his patient on the dental chair before running out of the room and leaving him hanging upside down for several minutes.
Keep the chair moving the whole time, buddy. Don't stop.
Joe starts telling his patient about the various dental tools at his disposal, including shoehorns and dubiously named pliers.
In the industry, we call this the bilateral hammer around.
The best performance is from Murr, who simply spins and twirls around the room on the wheeled chair. For the strip high-five prank, Murr and Joe have to deal with an ultra-rare double punishment when both of them tie for last after 3 challenges. The two have to stand in the middle of Union Square and play a game of strip high-five. The idea is that each of them has to try and get strangers to high-five them. For every stranger who refuses to high-five them, they have to remove an article of clothing. Both of the guys have some success at first, as most people are pretty friendly. As soon as they start losing more clothes, people are more reluctant to have anything to do with them.
Sir, high five.
Pretty soon, the guys attract a crowd of onlookers, and they both get down to their underwear. Joe is successful in getting a high five in his underwear, but Murr is not so lucky.
Please, give me a high five. Please.
And he ends up getting his underwear pulled down by Joe in the middle of the street. Joe then grabs the rest of Murr's clothes and dashes off, leaving him standing there barely able to cover himself, looking deeply, deeply ashamed. It was, as Q called it,
The most public of humiliations.
Season 1 of Impractical Jokers has some of the series' best moments, and the That Looks Delicious prank from the episode titled Out of TP is no exception. For this challenge, the guys find themselves at a buffet restaurant. Unfortunately for them, they aren't allowed to purchase any of the food. Instead, they have to grab food from the plates of unsuspecting diners, and whoever ends with the least amount of food on their plate loses. Q goes first, but he almost immediately forfeits after no one gives him the time of day.
Hi. How are you? You seem very nice.
I'm not.
Okay.
Murr gets caught instantly trying to grab some corn, and another guy notices him grabbing a wing, though he doesn't say anything. He steals another woman's okra, and his plate ends up weighing a respectable 1 pound 4 ounces at the end. Sal immediately starts grabbing food from patrons left and right, but he only comes up with 1 pound total.
The amount of dirty looks that are getting thrown your way.
There's mayhem going on out here. There's complete mayhem.
Joe is the final contestant, and he starts scatting while grabbing food from a few female patrons. One of them alerts her husband, who decides to test Joe out and see if he tries it with him. When Joe does, the guy smacks his macaroni spoon away from him. Joe ends up following him to the table and grabs some fried chicken after a brief tongue fight, but his plate still weighs under 1 pound and he loses along with Q. The best Impractical Jokers punishments are brutally public, and the one from below the belt is an all-time classic. Murr is the loser of the episode, so he has to endure the punishment. His task is to deliver a PowerPoint lecture on the science behind climate change, which Murr claims he can do in his sleep. However, while Murr is giving the speech, the guys will have access to his lower body via a hollow table he is standing in front of. The audience can't see the guys under the table, and they immediately start making Murr's presentation as difficult as possible. Sal begins by waxing one of Murr's legs while he's speaking, making Murr grimace and squirm.
Still allows.
Next up is Q, who sprays Murr's pants with a water bottle to make it look like he wet himself. He then has to step on a mouse trap and walk around wearing high-heeled shoes, confusing the audience immensely. But that wasn't even the most embarrassing part of the prank.
What? Hi.
The coup de grace is when Joe turns Murr's slacks into shorts, again making him parade around in front of a bewildered and amused audience. As punishment for losing the junk in the trunk challenges, Sal had one of his most high-energy moments on the show. The gag is that the guys are at a local car rental agency and Sal has to hide in the trunk of one of the vehicles. He's supposed to ride along in the trunk until the person needs to open it, at which point they'll see him and be shocked. The prank gets off to a seemingly rocky start when the renters take the car on a much longer trip than expected. Sal rattles around in the trunk while the woman drives around, smacking his head several times.
I just went flying.
Speedboat's going up.
Oh God, no.
Eventually, the car stops and a woman gets out and opens the trunk.
Hi, I'm sorry.
Finally, when it seems like the woman is truly upset, Joe reveals the truth. It's actually his friend Melissa, who knew about Sal in the trunk the whole time. Her getting upset was all an act, and Sal bought it, hook, line, and sinker.
There you go.
Where are we? Around the corner.
Yeah, we like went around the corner.
Just gone around the block. Oh, God.
One of the funniest recurring pranks on Impractical Jokers is the Did I Deserve That challenge. For these challenges, the guys are working as cashiers behind a store counter when an irate customer barges in and throws water at their faces while they are in the middle of a transaction. The guys then have to sell whatever excuse they are told to get the customer to say they did not deserve it.
What did we do wrong? We're gonna find out, and no matter how bad it is, we've gotta defend it.
The first time the guys did the challenge was during the episode The Blunder Years, and it was one of the funniest of the series. Joe and Sal successfully get a no from their customers.
I put like thousands of mosquitoes in his house, and I thought he'd get the hint. I mean, do you think I deserve that?
No.
But Murr doesn't have the same luck, though he does win $100 in a side bet from Joe after caressing the chest hair of a customer. The final participant is Q, but that's when the entire prank goes awry and ends up creating one of the best Impractical Jokers moments of all time. The actor quickly realizes his mistake, but maintains there's nothing he can do now. Luckily, the aggrieved party is a good sport about the whole thing and is able to laugh it off. You know the punishment is going to be good in Impractical Jokers when it covers almost half the episode. And Murr's judo bout during a poolside cocktail party in the episode The Party Crasher is one of these rare few. For this punishment, Murr has to crash a cocktail party and start a wrestling match with two-time U.S. Olympic gold medalist judo champion Kayla Harrison. Murr already looks incredibly conspicuous wearing a wig made from Q's hair, and his constant flailing at Kayla quickly gets the attention of all the party guests. And he's only allowed to say one thing about the situation.
I know her from college.
After she rips off his toupee during an ill-fated takedown attempt, he has to put it back on and continue wearing it, looking completely disheveled. At one point, Kayla throws Murr through a table, and he just tries to play it off as best he can.
Oh my God!
For the finale, Kayla launches Murr over her head into the pool after his final failed attack. The guests clap and cheer for Kayla, who walks back and enjoys the rest of the party. Seeing Murr get manhandled by an Olympic gold medalist was a highlight of the season and one of the best celebrity cameos of the entire series. The episode Blind Justice features one of Sal's best all-time punishments. His task is to act as a hardened convict and give a scared straight speech to a room full of teenagers. He thinks the only catch is that he has to wear a pair of sunglasses that 100% obscure his view and use a few props. However, the guys reveal to the audience the true deviousness of the punishment. He is in fact not speaking to a crowd of teenagers.
Shut up! I don't want to hear anybody.
He lectures them about not disappointing their parents and warns them about spending the next 50 years of their life in prison. The audience starts laughing at the ridiculous speech. Sal hears this but doesn't fully understand, which just makes him yell more.
Tight, boy. That's what people are gonna tell you in there.
Eventually, he puts two and two together.
This is so not teens.
Take your glasses off.
And for the grand finale, Sal shows them his Jaden Smith tattoo, which makes them all break out in hysterics. It's no secret to fans of the show that Murr had a massive childhood crush on Danica McKellar, an actress from one of his favorite childhood shows, The Wonder Years. For his punishment in the Blunder Years episode, Murr has to interview McKellar in a hotel conference room. While that sounds pretty desirable, Murr has to do so while completely oiled up and wearing a Speedo. The guys tell him he's going to enter a bodybuilding contest, which gives them cover to douse him with oil and put him in a Speedo, but it was all just a ruse.
Behind the door is gonna be a celebrity that is Murray's childhood crush.
During the interview, Murr is told what to say.
Truth or dare? I'll go first. Truth. I used to kiss a poster of you when I was younger.
And she is told to act as harshly as possible with Murr, and she delivers in spades.
Finish this equation. Me plus you equals...
Really awkward.
After thoroughly embarrassing himself by trying to do squats and flex for her, Murr is mercifully allowed to leave the room and McKellar alone. As soon as she walks out, she bursts out laughing, but Murr is probably scarred for life. The pranks where the guys participate in panels are definite staples on Impractical Jokers. One of Q's most hilarious was from Brother of the Sisterhood. Q has to sit in on a panel of experts talking about feminism, posing as the author of a blog titled Brother of the Sisterhood. And of course, he must disagree with everything the panelists say.
I think Michelle Obama is a fantastic example.
Right, but she wouldn't be in the White House if her husband hadn't gotten her there.
The host is in on the joke, but no one else is, least of all the audience members. First, Q has to explain the difference between men's jobs and women's jobs.
Hey man, I'm all for, women's rights. I mean, who isn't? But I also want my car to run well.
Then he is forced to defend a quote from his fictional blog where he claimed that women becoming mothers turn emotionally unstable and irrational.
These ladies, they're going through a lot.
After several minutes of excruciatingly uncomfortable and cringeworthy banter, Q has to give his closing remarks. And they consist solely of him telling the almost exclusively female audience that he finds it amazing they can go all day without playing with their breasts. It is without a doubt one of Q's most embarrassing and awkward punishments in the series. The Q pay might be the best known and longest lasting prank in Impractical Jokers history. Murr's the loser in this episode, and his punishment is that he has to wear a wig. It doesn't sound too bad until you realize whose hair he's wearing. Q's. The guys have Q cut off his shoulder-length hair and make it into a wig for Murray.
Oh my God!
That hand.
No, what's gonna happen?
Going on that hand.
The wig doesn't look half bad at first, but doesn't suit Murr at all. To make matters worse, Murr has to get his passport picture taken with the wig. This is to contrast with Murr's driver's license, which features him with a shaved head and shaved eyebrows from an earlier punishment. Murr claims the hair smells like
Whiskey and pot.
Unfortunately for Murr, he can't just take off the wig after a day. He has to keep it on for the remainder of the season. There are several more episodes in Season 6 after the Q pay, and Murr's hair just gets worse and worse as time goes on. The fact that it keeps going throughout the season makes it by far the best Impractical Jokers prank in the series. It's almost like multiple punishments in one, as every episode with him wearing it is like an extra prank.